We'll be right back. See you in a second. Thank you very much. Great.
Since Gobween Satan, Andrew Weiss had been a crucial driving force for Ween in both the recording process and during live performances. For lack of a better comparison, he had been like George Martin to the Beatles, bringing expertise and craftsmanship to Ween's chaotic creativity. But as Gene and Dean developed as performers and songwriters, they began to wonder if they could strike out on their own, like the Beatles had with Let It Be. They felt they needed to prove themselves as musicians without help from their big brother, and so they set out to do just that. It was now sink or swim for Ween. After showing so much growth on Chocolate and Cheese, it remained to be seen if the band would flourish in their new independence, or flounder without someone to rein them in. With that in mind, you'd be justified in thinking that Ween should play it safe, continuing to develop what had worked on Chocolate and Cheese to smooth out the transition. But Ween had never been one to follow sound advice, and in 1995, Gene and Dean decided to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, mount the stallion, and ride headfirst into uncertainty.
Oh, we're Ween.
What's a Ween?
We're a band, you know.
Out of nowhere, out of a total musical vacuum, out of total darkness, comes one ray of light. And it's fucking Ween.
During the Chocolate and Cheese era, Ween had found themselves gravitating towards the country genre. Aside from Drifter in the Dark, there were also two outtakes, Powder Blue and I'm Holding You, that the band was intent on finishing. Soon after, the band wrote Piss Up a Rope, and the idea of doing a full country album seemed more and more appealing. Gene and Dean were nervous to fully commit to doing a traditional Ween album without Weiss, so they decided to do a country album in Nashville with session musicians as an excuse to put some distance between them. After recording a demo tape of 11 country songs, done in the classic 4-track Ween fashion, friend of the band Ben Vaughn shopped it around to various session musicians in Nashville, some of which turned down the project based on the lyrical content of Piss Up a Rope and Mr. Richard Smoker. In the interim, we moved into a beach house in New Jersey to begin working on a different, nautically themed album. When they received word that the session musicians had been locked down, they traveled to Nashville to begin work, with Ben Vaughn handling production. The musicians Ween contracted to record the album were legends in their own right. On piano was Bobby Ogden, who had played with Kenny Rogers, Willie Nelson, Ray Charles, and had been a member of the Marshall Tucker Band for 5 years. Behind the steel guitar was Russ Hicks, who had played with Marty Robbins, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Townes Van Zandt. On harmonica, bass, and really any instrument you can think of was Charlie McCoy, who had recorded solos on records by Roy Orbison, Bob Dylan, Elvis, Waylon Jennings, and Simon and Garfunkel. I could go on, but I think that gives you an idea of the pedigree of musicianship that Ween was working with. The band worked as one unit, effortlessly adapting to any changes Gene and Dean could throw at them. Of the recording, Dean wrote, "For this album, we wanted to see if it was possible to hire the great session players from the golden age of country music, and after a few phone calls, I realized that the 5th Ween album was going to have 3 guys named Buddy playing on it. We wrote these songs exclusively for this record, and we spent most of our time leading up to these sessions frightened that our band was going to kick her skinny northeastern asses. As it turns out, I don't think we phased these guys at all. So around November 1st, Gina and I jumped in my car and we drove to Nashville, where we spent 8 lovely nights at the Shoney's Inn, conveniently located next to the Country Music Hall of Fame. The rest of our time was spent laughing at each other, singing in a room of 50 to 60-year-old guys playing songs that we wrote. I think that in this time of crappy power country, our session was a lot of fun for everyone involved. The players on this record are the best that I've ever played with, and they nailed every one of these songs on the first and second takes.
Probably the first 10 minutes, I would say, was my highlight. Because we'd conceptualized about it and planned it, but we had no idea if it was going to work. We assumed that it would be great, you know. But the second they started playing the first song on the first day, it was like, we just started laughing.
Yeah, listening to the Jordanaires, too, is really funny. Yeah. Listening to the Jordanaires back us up, it's just hilarious. I mean, because these guys are, you know, it.
As a result, the backing tracks for the album were recorded in just 3 days. During the sessions, 1 song was added to the track list, while 3 were scrapped, leading to the album being only 10 tracks long. Despite considering naming the album November Nights, the band decided to go with 12 Golden Country Greats, mostly because it was funny.
Actually, the new album, the 12 Golden Country Greats, obviously 10 songs. Okay. Pretty.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. And then
you got to flip the CD over.
Oh, okay. Damn.
You got arrow back after track 1.
I should have known. I should have known these things. Out of curiosity, I've noticed that like the albums prior to that were, pretty much mixed with like either 4-track or 8-track. This album seems to be technically more advanced, I guess, than the other albums. Was that intentional, or was that just the way?
Yeah, it would have been kind of hard to drag those guys into like our living room to record on the 4-track.
Having the band meant that Gene and Dean were free to focus on the lyrics and vocals, while taking notes from Ben Vaughn on how to produce. In fact, Dean, the instrumental powerhouse of Ween, only recorded guitar on 1 song on the album, that being I Don't Want to Leave You on the Farm. Likewise, Gene only contributed guitar on Fluffy, technically making it the Ween album with the least, well, Ween on it.
People used to do it, Dylan went down and made Blonde on Blonde, not to say that but...
That's kind of crazy, too, because, it's like an all-star... Oh, yeah? What?
What? So I was just looking in the other camera.
It's a puppet show. You assembled like an all-star cast of country players. Well, why did they want to play with me?
Why?
Yeah.
Coughed up the cash.
Yeah, we had the cash. Totally.
12 Golden Country Greats begins with I'm Holding You, a sweet call and response tune, not dissimilar from Drifter in the Dark, but the added instrumentation really elevates this one into transcendental territory. The classical guitar solo, courtesy of Pete Wade, is played with such passion that I found myself falling in love with this album from the first song alone. Next is Japanese Cowboy, a more upbeat jig, which tells a story of a love that's too rare to be true. Gene's voice takes on the quality of a confident crooner as Russ Hicks tears the steel guitar to shreds. The 3rd track on the album is perhaps the most controversial, Piss Up a Rope. The song is sung by Diener, and the title comes from an old adage that Dean's dad used to describe fruitless endeavors, but the title itself isn't really the source of the controversy. The lyrics to Piss Up a Rope are, taken at face value, pretty sexist, playing into the classic country trope of hating your nagging wife. But the verbal abuse goes so far as to push the track into parody, with the narrator obviously being a terrible person. As an aside, X-Files actor David Duchovny has gone on record as saying that Piss Up a Rope is his favorite Ween song, because it was introduced to him by his future wife, Téa Leoni. After becoming a Ween fan, Duchovny would recommend the band to 20th Century Fox, leading to Ween recording an original song for the X-Files movie soundtrack. Next is I Don't Want to Leave You on the Farm, a homesick song, written by Gene from the perspective of Claude on tour, who had been missing his girlfriend while on the road with Ween. Pretty Girl is a banjo-picking jig about a lopsided love triangle at a hoedown. It's a great song that's sure to get you dancing, but I've always preferred the live version where Gene's vocals are moved into a higher key. Powder Blue is one of the tracks that was carried over from the Chocolate and Cheese era. At the end of the track, after shouting out the session musicians on the album and giving them time to solo, the track transitions into a section featuring Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali.
Everybody stop talking now, attention. I told you, all of my critics, I told you all that I was the greatest of all time. Sunday, listen. I told you today, I'm still the greatest of all time. Never again defeat me. Never again say that I'm going to be defeated. Never again make me the underdog until I'm about 50 years old. Then you might get me.
After not clearing the sample, Ween faced legal action on behalf of Ali's lawyers, causing Elektra to pull the album from shelves and replace the song with a version that ends abruptly after the introduction, making the original version a real rarity. Mr. Richard Smoker is another controversial track, being a jaunty, almost ragtime take on gay culture. It's another track that goes so far that it comes out the other side, clearly being a parody of homophobic stereotypes, and it's been adopted by Ween fans of all walks of life as a live favorite. Help Me Scrape the Mucus Off My Brain is another Diener track. It's a song about begging your wife to help you recover from a hangover and apologizing for being out so late. In its own way, it's a really sweet song, with another great classical guitar solo. Next is You Were the Fool, an epic folk ballad with a psychedelic bent. It's closer to the Grateful Dead than Conway Twitty, and feels like something you'd hear on later albums like White Pepper or Quebec, with reverb vocals and dissonant feedback in the final instrumental section. Finally, Fluffy, an ode to the simple life, with a dog by your side. Written entirely in short sentence fragments, like something out of a phonics book, the lyrics mimic the way you would actually talk to a dog. And of course, the song ends in a soaring guitar solo, courtesy of Gene. Despite only being 10 songs long, around half their usual output, 12 Golden Country Greats is truly all killer, no filler. By exploring a wide range of stylings within the genre, with a backing band full of industry legends, Ween had essentially created the perfect country album. If you had told that to Gene and Dean in 1990, I think they would have laughed in your face, before making a song about farting or whatever. It's amazing just how far we've come.
Yeah, you certainly did. I mean, completely. As far as a listener, to me, did sort of a 180 and just went into a completely different direction than before. You know, when I was told, you know, or when I was asking one of the Elektra reps, I was like, "Is Ween coming out with a new album?" They're like, "Yeah, it's a country album," and I kind of just went, cool. You know, I mean, it'd be kind of interesting. And then, you know, I listened to the album, and it's completely a departure from what you usually do.
We didn't know we were making a record. I mean, to tell you the truth, we went down there we had a lot of the songs laying around that we knew we were going to put on our next record. And it got to the point where we had so many sort of country songs that we figured we'd go down there and do it just as a session.
Right.
And then, you know, we couldn't really shelve it. You know, it was too good for that, so.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened. I mean, we couldn't not put it out. I see the record kind of like as a, you know, Beach Boys Christmas record or something. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
Just one of those albums.
Pretty cool, dude.
You couldn't ignore, huh?
Yeah, you got to put it out.
On release, 12 Golden Country Greats was met with mixed reactions. It was given sterling reviews by Pitchfork and Stephen Irwin of AllMusic, but middling reviews from Entertainment Weekly, Spin Magazine, and Rolling Stone, and a shocking 1 out of 10 by NME. Fans were equally confused by the album's announcement, but many quickly took to the album once they heard the songs. To promote the release, Ween decided to do what only Ween could do, and hand out 12 Golden Country Greats themed Golden Country Beans to customers who bought the album at HMV. Despite being a fun diversion, which gave us some of their catchiest tunes of all time, 12 Golden had always been a stepping stone for Ween, a proving ground of sorts. Now confident that they could go it alone, Ween returned to the Jersey Shore to continue work on their next album. As the waves lapped at the beach, Gene and Dean found it within themselves to make something truly special. An album to outdo their entire catalog to that point. Cold blew the wind, and something was in the air. The next chapter of Ween history would bring new friends, new setbacks, new success, and lots of seafood.
Okay, so where do you think the two of you are going to be, like, when you're in that position, like when you're 60 years old? You guys met when you're 14 in typing class or something like that?
Yeah.
So buds for a long time. Where do you project yourself to be, like, when you're their age, 60 years old?
I think by 60 years old, I probably will hope to be in, like, southern Florida or some typical thing like that. But when I'm, like, 40, I'd like to be in Ween still anyway.